Welcome to another episode of Design Sketching 101, a platform that I'm using to break the boundaries of sketching fears and improving your confidence when it comes to sketching everyday objects, design sketching. As usual, I'll be using a pro marker. This time, this one's in forest green, very tropical, with a chisel tip end. The reason why I use these is because if I make a mistake, you get to see it. You might get to see me improve it, and it's all to do with building up confidence. The more mistakes you make, the better you will profit in the future, because you'll understand where you made your mistake. You'll be thinking a lot more about how the sketch is arranged. I'm in a watch sketching mood today, so I've decided let's try and draw a watch profile of some kind, and we can go through the steps. I'm going to build it up from the ground up and just start straight up with a three-dimensional view, and we'll see how it goes. So ideally, when it comes to designing watches, it's good to draw a side profile of some kind. But for the sake of time, I'm going to start with a three-dimensional view, because those generally take quite a lot of time. And from there, maybe do a front view and show how the dial might feature in the watch. So we're going to start with some kind of reference line. It's going to be a three-quarter view, so I'm thinking the line can be diagonal. Okay, and we're going to have two lines, so one there, one there. Don't know why I'm drawing off the page, but that's okay. We might be pushing the lengths of this a little bit too much. So as usual, I haven't necessarily warmed up for this exercise. We're going straight into it. We're going to be nice and loose, which is something I always recommend when it comes to sketching, because you don't overthink what you're doing too much, and you can have fun doing it. So we've just drawn a very, very basic isometric box view. Now from there, what I would usually do is maybe draw a reference line from the middle on both sides. You see, it's nice being able to see through the objects, and I'll show you why. Because even if these guide curves are not in perspective, they help you create something that is in perspective in the end. You'll have a much better orientation about perspective if you do use these little reference lines in places. And I know in some disciplines it's frowned upon that you do design sketches around this when you're not a beginner, but even as someone who's been doing this for 5 years, I still like using this method because it really helps me keep things in proportion and in perspective. So now that I have a box frame, I'm going to now put the watch head on top of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and ghost in a oval-like circle. This is going to be interesting. That's going to fit on top of the case, okay? And what I'm going to do is just push through some kind of reference line and repeat it. Okay. Now, there are a couple of mistakes with this, of course. Freehand sketching is not something that is the easiest thing in the world. This oval has gone completely out of the window, but it's all good. You're going to keep going, because that's what sketching is about. You don't give up. So now we have some semblance of a watch head. What we're going to do is we're going to continue by just pulling some reference lines through to create the lugs. The lugs are things that allow the watch to sit on a strap or bracelet or something. So we're going to use this watch head now as the sample. Maybe what we can do to improve this is to just pull it outwards a little bit more and around the enclosure. That's a bit better, I think. It was supposed to be circular, now it's like a complete oval, but that's okay. Next step, we're going to create some lugs. Now, depending on the watch style, I'm thinking we're going to do quite a classical watch today, so the angle of the lugs are going to be nice and low cut. They'll be nice and thin, and petite would be the best way to describe it. What we can do at the we'll get to that just now. First step, we can draw some diagonal lines downwards. So one diagonal line, two diagonal lines. Using these perspective lines to help you will greatly increase your chances of drawing in perspective. Okay, so we have some kind of lug. Okay, now it's up to you to design your lugs that you're interested in, whether you want it to be rounded or sharp or curved. So what I've done is just pull some more reference lines through the angled points. And now I can really pick and choose what kind of lug design do I want with this model. Firstly, we can look at the thickness of the lugs, which I'm guessing will be about that thick. Yeah, that's okay, that'll do. Pull some lines down again. Maybe if you want, you can draw some reference lines back to the original starting point. That's nice. Okay, and we can work on this side. So we follow a similar kind of pattern on this side. Of course, you won't see much over here because the watch head is in the way. Like I've said, with most sketches, it's all to do with layering and building up the drawing. It's not so much to do with getting it right the first time. I mean, look how many mistakes I've made. But through defining it and refining your drawing with a marker, you can easily hide some of those mistakes. So in this drawing, what I'm thinking is, because it's at this angle, and because watch crowns are usually on the right-hand side, this watch is actually facing, the top will be this side and the bottom will be here. So the crown can sit over here on the page. So what I'm going to do is continue these reference lines going through the drawing, and you'll see why. I want to add some detail regarding the crown guards. So let me start by just roughing out a small circle for the crown and another one. Again, keeping these little lines in perspective thanks to the reference lines I've drawn previously. Okay, we've got a semblance of a crown. Now the crown guards, I always find are fascinating. What we're going to do is we're going to try and integrate the crown guards into the case. So there's the side of the case flank, and there's where your crown guard will begin. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw some kind of reference, and we'll start from the bottom. I always find it good to start from the bottom for especially organic shapes, and then work upwards. So from the bottom, you're going to draw from here to the edge and pull a nice rounded corner, and the same we're going to repeat for the top. I mean, how cool does that look? Nice, very, very simple form factor, and we're going to follow the same principle on this side somehow. So that's where our reference line goes and stops, and we're just going to pull this way, and over here on this corner we're going to pull this way, and now we have a very tasteful crown guard. Okay, next step, let's add the strap. I'm not going to add a bracelet this time around. It's going to be a strap watch. It's a bit more classically designed and proportioned. So let's see, if you know anything about watches, watches have pins that hold the straps down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include some kind of reference to a open holes case that allows the pins to be shown. So we're going to have a pinhole over here and a pinhole over there. And because everything's very nice and organic, well, so far what we've seen with these, I'm going to continue that over here by just rounding off the edges of these lugs, just to keep it a bit more loose. Now we're going to draw the leather strap. So what we're going to do is some kind of reference line down to indicate that there's some depth behind the sketch, and this line goes all the way down to the bottom. So what you can do very simply with the leather strap is, with a reference to the side of the case, we just draw a horizontal line through and pull the strap around. Now, proportion, like with everything, is very important, and what I've noticed immediately is that the case is very big and the strap's very small. So what we can do to alter that is to pull another horizon line through the strap and to make it look a bit thicker. Once it's been into the case, it'll have a different shape once it comes out. So I'll try and indicate that for you in a front view drawing. So what I want, actually you should be able to see it pretty well. Think of it as almost like a tongue. This part of the strap is a tongue, and as it comes out of the case, it is a lot wider, adding to that lug width of the case itself. Now, just drawing this reference line down, I did not intend it to be anything special. I just wanted to draw it down to get the size. But now looking at it, it can be used as some kind of reference to indicate that there is some some depth or dynamism to the strap itself. All these little details play a part in the process of design sketching. Now I'm wondering if we should draw a strap on this side. We can try. Let's first just add a few little details. Something I enjoy doing is adding some kind of stitching to the strap itself to give it a bit more intrigue. Now we can do a bit more detailing with the crown, for example. Maybe add another circle on the inside. Maybe add some lines to indicate that there's some texture on the crown so that when you pull it out it's nice and easy to operate. If we really want to go above and beyond, we can add some texture to these crown guards, which could be very interesting. And of course, for the bezel of the watch, which is this big part of the watch head, you could add some fluting to it, you could polish it, you can make it really reflective. I think because this is a very simple, basic episode, I'm going to leave it nice and clear. And what I like to do is get the watch proportioned in 3 dimensions on this side, and then on this side of the page I would then highlight the details of the watch itself. So maybe I'll do that. I haven't been keeping track of the time of the video, and I think I'm going to leave this. Actually, no, let's try something. So this I find quite a daunting challenge, is actually getting some idea of what the strap is going to be doing going in the distance. So we're going to follow this kind of aesthetic and round it around here somehow. This might be a complete blunder, but we'll see. Pull this way. Okay, and then so that's the right side of the strap. The left side is going to be coming out from here somewhere. So let's see. Yeah, it's okay. Could have been better, but it's okay. That'll do. And we have an example of a fully fashioned watch that has all the elements. If I had to highlight the elements, we have the watch head, we have the crown guards, we have lugs, which are extremely important. They indicate a lot about the joinery, and then we have the strap. So we have quite a lot of detail expressed in this really rudimentary and basic drawing that I hope you've been able to follow and understand as we've gone through the building up process. And just to finish the drawing off, I think what I'm going to do is draw the watch head to show a little bit of detail behind it. So what we're going to do is start with a box frame, which is something I should have done in the beginning, for a good reference point for the circle of the actual dial. Now that I've done this, I'm warmed up, so drawing the form of the dial shouldn't be all that difficult now, he says, and then he makes a mistake. So we're going to start by just drawing. I really need to go to circle sketching school. This is a terrible. So we have some kind of example of a two-folded face. That's okay, that'll work. Now what you can do is work on how you might want to proportion your lugs relative to the case. Now on a lot of occasions it's good to give your lugs a bit of an angle to them. So like what I'm expressing here, pulling the lugs inwards and adding a very skew horizon line to them. They give you a little bit of perspective, or should I say that the taper gives you a little bit of perspective to work with. And now from here you can just draw some straight lines down the back, 1 and 2. Okay, this has turned out to be a lot more messy than I wanted it to be, but that's okay. And then you can add your crown and your crown guards, which will be linked to them in one way or another. Doesn't even make sense anymore, but it's all good. It's all practice, as always. Something I've always specialized in. Everything is practice. So what I'm doing now is just adding some reference lines in. I've noticed that the actual sketch of the profile is a little bit skew. When I say a little bit, I mean quite a lot. but that's okay. Next, maybe add some little holes for the strap, which is something I can include in this drawing actually. Probably start about there. And this is the time when you can now start adding detail to the face of the watch, whether you want it to be extremely simple or difficult. What I recommend you do is divide up the face into 8 pieces and just work around. You start by working from the 12 o'clock to the 6 o'clock, and then the 3 and the 9 o'clock, and in between these diagonal lines you include references for the numerals in between, which helps balance. I mean, the dial's nice and balanced, even though these lines are completely all over the place. So that's it, and just add some finishing touches with some hands that you might want. I don't know, sword hands or arrow hands with a little sub-second. Well, this drawing went from something really neat and tidy to something quite loose and messy, but that's okay, because the bulk of the video was sketching out this little profile, and now you kind of get the gist of the exercise. To end off, I think I'm going to do one more thing, and that's add a side profile for you. Because like with anything, a composition can easily sell an idea, and compositions are great ways of getting your idea across to people, and also it just looks so much more interesting to an observer. So I'm going to start with drawing the profile of the case, which I think is a good start, and maybe add the lugs, which will be going downwards here possibly, and round them off. Then we can maybe add the underside of the case, which is round, something you can't interpret from the front view or the top view that I've shown you. Some more downward curves. This is quite a tall case, but that's okay. And now we add the profile of the bezel on top and round it off. And from here we can emphasize the strap just by pulling some curved lines from left to right. And now we have a good example of what the side profile of the watch might look like. Might, it's a very strong word. Right, so we have that done. That's a pretty interesting composition. It's pretty nice. You're able to highlight all the little details and the specifics. So I'll be calling this side, which you write on the underside. We would call this front. And we will call this 3/4. So we just draw, I don't know, 3/4 view. So there you have a pretty interesting composition of a watch. From a 3/4 view to a front view to a side view. Generally, in practice, this should be number 1, this should be drawn number 2, and this should be drawn number 3. You should not follow the order that I did, which was the 3/4 view first. You should first start by getting a baseline of what the proportions are going to look like before you execute it in 3 dimensions. But I hope you've been able to take something away from this exercise and that you enjoyed it. And keep following for more exciting content I hope to bring to you very soon. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.